have bi-weekly conversations in teaching, learning, and education in general. Each week we have a different guest on our webinar, and today we have my friend Miranda Olson. She is a learning specialist at Forney ISD, assigned to an elementary campus at Blackburn. And our content that we're going to talk to you about today is teaching math virtually. So hi, Miranda, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on here. Miranda has a lot of experience, and so I'm really excited to hear her ideas because we collaborate well together, and she always has really brilliant ideas. So no pressure, Miranda.
Okay.
So for us to get started, why don't you just introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about, why did you go into education? What have you done? And have you always wanted to be a learning specialist?
Okay, so, my family was in education, and so I think from way back, I knew that I would have some role in education. I originally thought I wanted to do speech pathology, but through a series of events, I changed my mind and decided to teach. And so I spent several years in elementary classrooms, 2nd grade, 5th grade, 3rd grade. And as I was in those classrooms, I taught on a lot of high-need campuses. And so I had the opportunity to learn a lot about effective teaching practices and also data. And that was what really led me to an appreciation for curriculum and instruction in terms of wanting to transition into a role as an instructional coach or as a learning specialist. So
that's really cool. Just kind of a branch from there. You said that about data. Real quick, why is data important? Like what you said, you taught on high needs campuses. How has data helped you to meet student needs?
So, to me, it's all about data-driven instruction, like looking at the data from to see what students do and don't know, and where I can fill gaps, and what I can do as the teacher to better support them in their learning. And so learning how to utilize data in that way, I think led me to be a better teacher and also prepared me for a role outside the classroom.
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so this year I said we're learning specialists, instructional coaches, but we're really working a lot on virtual content in the shift that is 2020. So tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing to teach math virtually.
So my role in the virtual math instruction is to create the video content for students to watch either before or after they meet with their classroom teacher virtually. And so I've really tried to think of it as kind of an exposed piece to the content, where the teachers then have the opportunity to work with small groups to dig in a little bit deeper for that. So yeah, I've been working on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade videos for the content side.
And so in this work that you're creating, do you do assignments as well, or just mainly like the videos and the instruction piece?
I primarily do videos and instruction. I'll occasionally put together an assignment piece. I do create assessment pieces that the students utilize, the teachers provide for the students to do. And I also make sure to include like what I would call stations activities, which in this virtual environment is mostly online, like a game, or sometimes I'll create like a set of slides that allows the students to like do fact practice or work through something like that. So some assignments, but mostly the videos.
Awesome. And so for those of you who maybe aren't at Forney ISD and kind of know just a little bit of background, so we use Canvas as our learning management system. And the system that we have set up here is that as learning specialists this year, we create some of that online content that is asynchronous, like the student is doing it when they're not together with the class, and then the virtual teacher is pulling students into groups and in live lessons. And so that content is pushed out to all of our face-to-face teachers and virtual teachers, but it is the work that the virtual teachers use. And so I say that because Miranda does work on 1st grade work, and so my own daughter, Keaton, she's seen her in the class, like I guess the teachers are using it some too, and so she's always super excited. She's like, that's my girl right there on the math video.
The curly hair girl.
That's the curly head girl. Any video, she's like, that's not my girl. So our face-to-face teachers do have access to those videos to use at their discretion as well with the content that they're working with. So with that, like with the development and with working with teachers, what have you seen are some challenges to teaching math virtually? And then how have you worked to overcome those challenges?
So the two greatest challenges that I've found for virtual math instruction are, number one, students don't have access to manipulatives the way that they would in the classroom. And I really think at many levels in math, even secondary, but especially in elementary, the manipulatives are super important for students to be able to develop a concrete understanding of what they're learning in math. I really try to support teachers in helping students understand at that concrete level so that when they later move to more abstract math, they've got the foundation that supports them in that. And so not having access to manipulatives is definitely the biggest hurdle. And what I've tried to do to overcome that is in the videos I create, I have images like pictorial models of those manipulatives whenever it's relevant. And then I also give students access to the manipulatives, like when I create the content in Canvas. And so I either embed the manipulatives under the video, or I put a link to where there's some virtual manipulatives available online somewhere. And I encourage teachers to do the same when they're working with them in small groups. An even better option that I think teachers have the opportunity to take is to work with their students to see what do they have at home that could supplement physically the manipulatives. So being so far removed from the students, I don't know, maybe they have popsicle sticks, maybe they don't, but a teacher could have that conversation and say, like, instead of base 10 rods, I want you to grab some popsicle sticks and pennies and make that work. So I think the manipulative issue is definitely the biggest hurdle to overcome. And the second thing that I think is difficult to overcome is so much of math, you want the students to have great conversations. Okay. And I think that that's probably really hard to facilitate virtually. I know certainly with a video, I have no way of helping the student have a good conversation with someone at home or with me, the video. And I'm sure teachers have found that even if everybody's in a Zoom, it's not the same as when the students are all face-to-face, able to turn and talk to their shoulder partner. And so I've tried to incorporate opportunities for the students to answer questions and if someone's available that they can talk to talk, but that's been another hurdle to try to kind of think creatively for how can I help them have those rich mathematical conversations.
Yeah, because thinking about it, those are really good points, because those are, I think, if you're struggling with understanding a mathematical concept, those are the two things that as a teacher I would go to help you better understand it. I would give you more manipulatives that were applicable, or have a conversation with another student and talk it through and kind of see. And so those are some good ways to address those challenges. But yeah, those are some challenges. And I'm interested to see how the data is going to show us how teaching math virtually, and even reading, just teaching virtually, how students are comprehending those as we continue with this new model of virtual instruction. What are some data-driven things that we're seeing that do work, and how is that affecting the students? Okay, so what do you think are some things that are imperative for teachers to remember when teaching math virtually? So I will say, like, we've all been thrown into this new world of 2020, and I personally wasn't trained to be a virtual instructor. And I think a lot of virtual teachers weren't trained to be virtual instructors. And I think there's some differences to teaching virtually as there are to teaching face-to-face. And so when it comes to math, what are some things that are really important for teachers to remember as math teachers in a virtual world?
I think that it kind of comes back to the previous question, in that you want to do the best you can to provide them with access to some kind of manipulative as they develop a concrete understanding. Find ways to allow them to have conversations. If you have a small enough group that they can kind of share out all together, that's great. And if you need to use like the breakout rooms in Big Blue Button or Zoom or whatever your platform is, that may be an option too. And I also think that just in general, like tying into both of those, even though we're teaching virtually, like, don't forget everything you know about great math practices. And maybe there's some that you can't find a workaround, but a lot of them you probably can. Things that you do in your classroom that are really effective and engaging, there's probably a way to make it virtual. But like you said, we don't know yet what the data is going to show is and isn't effective. So keep on keeping on with what you know has worked, and we can adjust as needed once we kind of get some data.
Yeah, that's good. What are some tips and tricks and examples that you want to share with us? So your stuff, I've seen it. It looks good. It's I learned some math concepts that I don't want to admit that I didn't know. So what are some things that you can share that would help teachers, maybe some tips or tricks or some examples to help them?
So something that has been really helpful for me is using Google Slides to create the content, because there's a lot of ability to create the types of images that I need very easily. So if I'm wanting pictorial models and I'm wanting, base 10 blocks or counters, even Unifix cubes, things like that, it's very easy for me to put an image in the slide. And so if you as a teacher are developing any kind of content like that, I would recommend that. Another thing that I have tried to keep in mind as I create the videos, I told somebody I kind of feel like Dora the Explorer, because I'm asking questions and then to no one, but trying to give wait time even in the video itself of here's the question, and imagine a student wanting to think about it. And so whether you're producing something that the student is watching not live, or if you are the teacher and you're asking those questions, ask those great questions and give them opportunities to participate in things like number talks or authentic problem-solving activities like 3-act tasks, and still give that wait time like you would in the classroom, where they have a chance to think it through, even if they don't always necessarily have a partner to talk to the way you would really, really hope. So.
And can I add a tip to that too? I know, for example, in one of the ones I watched with Keaton, my daughter, you did that, and I noticed it. You gave that wait time, and it was an appropriate amount of wait time for what you would do. But she even was still processing, and as you went to move on, she's like, she's moving on. Like, I didn't think about it, and so I paused the video. So I would even say, maybe even do it to a point that it feels awkward, because kids are processing on the other side, like not
yes
30 seconds or, not like 5 minutes of silence, but even if you as the person preparing the instructional video, it makes you feel awkward with the silence, kids are processing, and they're processing alone in a room across a screen. And so I know in high school I was the mascot, and they always said, like, make your movements way bigger, because you have to in this costume. And I think of that a lot in education, like, it's okay to let it go a little bit longer, even though it feels awkward to me. It's probably appropriate for them. And you had good wait time on those videos, but even in some of them, she's like, well, wait, I'm still trying to think, and the video's moving, so.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's great. And I do try sometimes, I'm glad you said about pausing it, because I'll try to tell them, if you need more time, pause, but I don't always do a great job of remembering to tell them, hey, pause. And honestly, a first grader may not remember from, the beginning of the video to 2 minutes into the video, oh yeah, she said I could pause. So.
Yeah. But yeah, that did, because I could see her processing through some of those things, like, oh wow, that's working. She's learning math virtually, so those are good. And I think the adding the Google Slides, that's a really good tip, because it gives that visual, but then you also have that as a resource, those slides too, as a resource to go back to if you need them.
You can share them with the students, and they can look at them again, or you as the teacher have the access to use them again if you need them. So a lot of benefits to having them that way.
That's good. Okay, so is there anything else about teaching math virtually that we haven't covered that you want to talk about? Anything I haven't asked about?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. It's just about being creative and finding a way to keep implementing those best practices.
Awesome. So before I ask the last question, I do want to say thank you so much for being on with us, and for sharing what you do know about teaching math virtually. I want to end kind of on a high note. So what encouragement do you want to share with teachers that would be kind of inspirational or motivating for teachers in general, or math teachers?
My best advice, I feel like it's silly, but when things are hard, I really, really try to think, just keep swimming. Like, just keep going and do what you can do today. And at the end of the day, let it go. Give yourself a break, take a rest, and then come back tomorrow and swim a little more, because we'll get through it. But I know it can be tough, so just keep swimming.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Miranda, for being on with us today. And thank you guys for tuning in to listen to our webinars. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another conversation in education.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome, mathematicians. I'm Miss Olson. Let's find out what you're learning about today. Today, you'll be reviewing your learning about number lines. You will locate the position of given whole numbers on an open number line and name the whole number that corresponds to a specific point on a number line. On a piece of paper, Write down at least one thing that you notice about the image below. Then, write down at least one thing you wonder about the image below. Pause the video until you have written down the one thing you notice and the one thing you wonder. When you're ready to move forward, press play. One thing I notice is that it's a number line, or at least it looks like one to me. One thing I wonder is, what could this number line be counting by? Did you have something similar that you noticed or wondered? Now you see that this image has the number 50 here. How does this new information change your understanding of the image? Do you have any new questions? I'm wondering if this number line starts at 50. I still want to know, what is it counting by? Ones, twos, fives, tens? Now you'll notice there's a 60 on the other side. How does this new information change your understanding? Do you have any new questions? For me, I now see that it is counting by something more than ones but less than tens, because 50 to 60 is 10. I don't have enough lines in between for it to count by ones. I think I know what it's counting by. I'm going to wait and see what comes next. Ooh, now I have a point and it's labeled T. What question could be written about the number line below? What would the answer be? Pause the video and write a math question that could be asked about the number line on your screen. Write down what the correct answer would be. When you've completed that task, press play. I thought of the question, what number is represented by point T? When I see 50, point T, 60, I realized this number line is counting by fives. So point T represents the number 55. Did you ask the same question and find the same answer? Or did you think of a different question? One final question for you. Where should the number 59 be placed on the number line? You can point to your screen to show where the number 59 should be placed. Remember to place it closest to the number it would be closest to when counting. When I'm counting by ones, 59 comes right before 60. So on my number line, I would place 59 right before 60. Thanks for your hard work today, scholars. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.